Hi boys and girls, this is Miss Gabby, and today we're just going to play with rhymes. We're going to read this little fun story by Guy Belloranti and just figure out how we would rhyme words together. Now let's just have a little review of what a rhyme is. A rhyme is a repetition of similar sounds in the final stressed syllable of any two or more words. So for instance, when we look at this one, they're talking about rhyming, so right away I could probably pick out something that goes together. So for instance, James said dog, and then Bella said frog. Dog, frog. I'm hearing similar sounds, and those two similar sounds is that little OG. So og and og sound the same. So when you attach a different consonant to the beginning of it, you hear dog, frog, and it just flows together. And as we explore the story today, I want you to pay attention to what's going on in the story while also taking a little fun jab at the words that they're talking about. And with that, let's dive into this story. So we have the rhyme game. Bella and James sat on the grass. Let's play the rhyme game, Bella said. First, you say a word, then I'll say a word that rhymes. James nodded. Truck, he said. Duck, Bella rhymed. House, James said. Mouse, Bella rhymed. Dog, James said. Frog, Bella rhymed. Can I do the rhyming now, James asked. Yes, Bella said. Dress, James rhymed. Bella laughed. Wait. Yes wasn't my word. Here it is now. Cow, James rhymed. No, Bella said, laughing harder. No, no, no. Go, James rhymed. Go, go, go. Bella laughed so hard she rolled on the grass. James rolled next to her. Rhyming was fun. And I wonder if you caught on to the little joke that they were playing. Well, when it was Bella's turn to say the words and James' turn to rhyme, he would just always rhyme with whatever she said at the time. So, right when she said yes, that she will say the word, and then James would be the rhymer, he just automatically rhymed with what she said. And with that, boys and girls, let's think about the setting of this story. Well, it's two characters playing, and they sat on the grass. Well, where do you think they might be? Do you think it's raining outside and they're in the cool rain playing a game? Or when you're normally playing a game with your friends outside on the grass, what kind of weather do you normally associate that with? Or what do you think may be going on? Well, let's take a look at this question that we have here. Where does the story take place? We have A, on a sunny day, B, outside, and then C, at the beach, and lastly D, in the morning. Well, when we look back into this story, it says that they were outside playing a game on the grass. So, is there a question here that you guys can eliminate? Take a moment and think about that. Normally, when you look at a multiple choice problem like this, it's good to find out what possibility does not make sense. So, when we look at on the beach, do you think that sounds correct? Well, think about the setting that associates with the beach. Normally, if you haven't been to one, there's a bunch of sand, you could see the ocean, there might be a bunch of towels down so you don't get messy with all the sand on the ground. Well, if you even look at the picture that they showed in the beginning of the story, they showed the two kids on top of grass, and they even reference it in the story. So I don't think at the beach is correct. And it's always good that when you have questions like this, you could support why that doesn't make sense. So you could go back in the story and go like, hey, no way they were at the beach. It says right here that they are on the grass playing this game. So you could easily just eliminate that from the possibilities. Now we're only left with on a sunny day, outside, in the morning for where the story takes place. And if you don't remember, just use the context clues that you saw here earlier in the story. So if we look back, and the very first line that we have to this story is that Bella and James sat on the grass. And then after that, they continue to play their rhyming game. So never once did they really reference where exactly they're at or what kind of weather is going on. They just continue on with their game. So this is really the only clue that we have to the setting of this story. And if you're ever stuck on a question, you always have that story there to reference. So always feel free, go back to the story, reread it. You might even have to do it a couple times to really understand what's going on. But the big idea is just to paint a picture in your head and what's happening between the two characters that we're talking about. So when we look back to the story, we know that it's not in the morning because it never really states that. And then on a sunny day is plausible, but again, the writer never states that's where they are. But we know they're on the grass, which means that they are outside. So the correct answer to this would be B. And with that, let's examine some of the words that we saw here in this story. It's okay if some of the words that I read didn't make sense to you, but again, like I referenced before, you could always go back into the story and reread where that word occurs, and you might be able to figure out what it means by the context clues that we see. And what we're going to do here is that we have all these words, and then the definitions here on the side. And what we're just going to do, we're going to match each word to the correct definition. So let's look at grass. Does grass match with small furry animal? Well, I think you guys know what grass means. So read all these definitions out loud and then find one that correctly matches to what grass means. And some of these words might be easy for you, but it's always good to get great practice in because once you know what the word means and then you see it enough, you become good spellers too and good readers as well, because that way you could paint a picture in your head of what grass looks like and you could tell what's going on here in the story. Alright, next word we have here is knotted. Well, I think it's a definition that I spoke out earlier. So think about it for a second. What does knotted mean? That's kind of a long word, but it's nice to break it up into parts that make sense. So if we look at the first set here, nod, what does that mean? What does nod mean? It means when you move your head or you're making a gesture with your head to probably say yes or no, maybe you're moving it side to side, but really nodded means when you're moving it back and forth, up and down. And then when you attach nodded or the did to it, it just means that you're doing that action. I nodded at that person. Or they nodded at me to tell me yes, it's okay to do it. It's just all depending on when you would need that ending DED to make it nodded. Or if your mom just says nod when you're ready to go. And once we start to eliminate some of these definitions here on the side, it becomes a lot easier to tell what these words means to the represented definition. So these next two might actually be a little easier for you. We have mouse and cow. Do you remember what they used to rhyme with cow and mouse? Think about a word that makes sense that goes with mouse and has that same sound, ouse. Well, a nice way to do that if nothing comes to your head right away is just get rid of that first letter and then place a different letter in front of it and see if it makes sense. So, by just thinking about it and by looking at this picture up here, let's get rid of that circle so it's easier to see, we show a mouse. And then what is this a picture of? Well, it looks like something you live in. That's a house. So they replaced M with H to make house. House, mouse, it flows nicely. And then let's look at cow. What possible word do you think they used to rhyme with cow in the story? Again, it's okay to go back and look earlier on in this video and try to find out what, but just think of some common words that rhyme with cow. What could you replace that C with to make a whole new word that makes sense? You could have said words like wow or how, but if you took the time to look back into the story, or if you just remember, which is great, then we would know that they used now as the rhyming word. And these may be easy words for you to define with, so let's go back and figure out what exactly these words mean. Well, we have mouse. We already got rid of these two definitions. And we're left with small furry animal, large animal that makes milk, opposite of stop, and then ha 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 for our last definition. Well, a mouse and a cow are both animals, and think about what a mouse looks like in your head. Well, it's a really small creature, and then a cow. Cow's very large, and if you like milk, it also produces that as well. So, a cow is a large animal that makes milk, and like I just said, a mouse is a small animal. So where would you put that? Feel free to put your finger on the screen and just draw the line to where you think it is before I do so. But it would be a small furry animal. All right, and the last two words that we had here in this story is laugh and go. Well, laugh is just something you do when you find something funny. And we're left with the two definitions opposite of stop and then ha ha ha. Well, ha 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 is kind of the sound you make when you find something funny. So we could safely say that laugh is ha ha ha, and then go, we're left with that one last definition, which is the opposite of stop. Which that makes sense. Go is just when you move forward or move backwards. You're just moving and you're going away from something. And then stop is when you're not moving, so that explains why it's the opposite of go. Alright, boys and girls, I hope you learned some new words today, or you just got a refresher when it comes to reading a story and figuring out their definition. And you also learned some new rhyming skills and how you would rhyme new words together. So, for instance, like we saw earlier, mouse went with house, cow went with now, and so on. And I would recommend playing this game with a friend. Even though the two characters did it in the story, doesn't mean you can't reenact that with your friends. No, play the rhyming game. You might learn some new words along the way, or just learn new words that rhyme with others that you didn't know could before. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great day, and thank you for joining me here today as we explored the rhyming game. Have a nice day. Bye!